Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Dear students of first year, as we have studied data and information in the last class, and then we studied file management system and the limitations of the file management system in the previous class. Today we move to database. Because of these limitations, because of these problems, because of these shortcomings, the programmers and the industry, they moved towards the database and database management system. So today we will discuss first of all the database. Okay, so as we studied in the file management system, that the data is isolated, the data is separate, and they were maintained in separate files by different departments. But this problem was taken, this problem was solved in this database, and in database the first rule is this, that the entire data should be stored at one centralized location. I repeat, that complete data will be stored at one centralized location, and that is called your database. So if we define database in the simple words, so database is a shared collection to meet the requirements of the entire organization. Number one, it is a shared collection. And shared collection of what? A shared collection of logically related data. By logically related data means we mean relationship. Inshallah, further when we elaborate this chapter, we will see what are the relationships and what are the types of relationships. So basically, database is not a separate entity, it is a shared collection. When you design a database, when you install the database on your server, so that is being shared among all the departments of your organization. For example, if it is a university, so let me draw a diagram, and it will give you the complete information about database. For example, this diagram is used to represent a database. For example, this is our database, and etc. We have different departments. Each department shares the same database. You know, the data is stored inside this centralized location, and whenever a student comes to any department, once, for example, it comes to admission department, the admission department give admission to the students. What entries do the admission department do? It will be stored in this location and shared with all departments. So it is not, the data is not being repeated. No department is supposed to write this information again and again. Once the record is being stored, it is being shared with all departments. So centralized location shared with all departments. And for example, in the last class, we discussed the limitations of the file management system, that the data is redundant, duplicated. But here, it minimizes the duplication. We studied in the file management system that the data is inconsistent. Means that, for example, some changes, some updation occurs here, all other departments, they are, for example, keeping the old data. so data becomes different at different location. But since here the data is in centralized location and one student has only data stored at one location one time, so when some changes occur, the all departments see those changes. It means that it is all departments share the same data. And secondly, if we define the second point, it also stores the description of data. Description means details of data, which is called metadata. You know, the big advantage of database is that it also stores metadata. What is metadata? That is the information about data. For example, what is the type of, like student name. Okay, what is the type of the student name? It is character, it is text, it is numeric, or it is date or time. How much size it is occupied, when it was stored, when it was updated, when it was deleted. So entire information about it is also stored at a location which is called metadata. And metadata is stored at a location called repository. Repository is the location where your metadata is stored and you can see all description about data. So as we have said that it is a shared collection. So when it is a shared collection, so when it is a shared collection, so it meets all the requirements of all departments of an organization because it is being shared. And you know, every organization has its own view. It is, you know, the company has a better control over the data, the security of the data. So we come to those advantages as well. So now we will discuss, I hope it is clear, what is a database. And now we come to another topic, and that is the database management system. Shortly, it is called DBMS, Database Management System. What is a database management system? Basically, a database management system is a collection of a set of programs which gives you some facilities, that means to create a database. It is the program, it is the software, it is the set of programs which gives you the facility to create your database. You know, question arises that okay, where we will create the database. So there are different softwares which are called DBMS. So database management system is an environment where not only you can create your database, but you can maintain your database. And So DBMS is a software which gives us three huge facilities to create a database, to maintain the database. Maintain means to run your database. Once the database is created, once it is installed in your organization, now in what software you will run that software for years. That is called maintain the database. So again, the DBMS is used to run your software. Then how to manipulate the database. This is the location where you do all the manipulations. And manipulations contain three basic steps. What is manipulation? Number one, you can store the data or the new data or new records. If you want to store new records in your database, you use database management system, and this is called manipulation. To store your data, to delete unwanted data, unwanted records, you use database management system, and this process is called manipulation. And the third one, editing, or you want to do some changes in the data. So manipulation means to store the data, to delete the data, and to edit the data. All these facilities provided by the database management system. So three main facilities that we have discussed that DBMS provides us: create a database, maintain the database, manipulate. Manipulation means to store, so to delete and to edit. We have some famous database management systems that are being used throughout the world, and we are also using these database management systems. And in the last chapter we will use one of them, that is called Microsoft Access. So let me write some of the DBMS which are used throughout the world. One is Microsoft Access, SQL Server, widely used throughout the world, and in which we are using the SQL commands as well. Then we have Oracle. Oracle is the most famous throughout the world, but it is registered, it needs registration, it is very costly software. So that is also used throughout the world, Oracle. And then these are some famous database management systems that we are being used throughout the world. And nowadays, in the latest terminology, the DBMS is called RDBMS. We use another terminology, RDBMS. Where R means relation. And let me explain you what is a relation. There are two words that we have used in today's lecture. One is relation and one is relationship. Okay, so we have used till now two words in my lecture today. We have used, one is relationship, and another word I have used, relation. In database, relation means table. So whenever you store your data in a tabular form, in the form of rows and columns, when the data is arranged in the form of rows, in the form of columns, that's what we call table. So tabular data is called a relation. Means, so whenever we say RDBMS, so that database management system which stores the entire data in the form of relations. Relations means tables. Secondly, what is the relationship? Relationship is the connection, the association, the link between two tables. When we have two tables, table number 1, for example, that is student table. When we have another table, for example, teacher, it contains all the records of teacher. It contains all the records of a student. And when we make a link, an association between these two tables, so this is called a relationship. What is relationship? Relationship is an association, a link among two or more than two tables. So two words, it must be clear to all the dear students that relationship is the association and relation is the table. Okay. Now let me write some of the database systems that are mostly we develop for the consumer, for the customers, and that is customer information system. Let me rub this thing. Some examples of database systems. One is customer information system. Inventory. Library management. These are some of the database systems that are developed, and mostly they are developed for different companies like customer information system, like inventory information, library management. Library management is a database that is mostly developed for libraries in schools, colleges, and they store all the data of the students and their books issued, return, their files, etc. So these are some of the examples of the database systems. Now we move to the advantages of database management system or DBMS or the file management system. As we have discussed in the previous lecture, that what are the shortcomings, what are the limitations of the file management system or conventional management system. So today we will discuss the advantages of the DBMS or that file management system. So number one is control data redundancy. What is control data redundancy? You know, in the file management system, the first limitation was there that the data is duplicated at many locations. You know, one student have repeated data at different departments, so it creates a lot of problem, duplication, etc. So here in database, it minimizes the duplication. What the database is? It minimizes when it minimizes the data duplication. Why? Because as we have studied today in the very start of our lecture, that the database concept is that the entire data should be stored at a centralized location. One person, one entity's data will be stored only at one time. The entire department, all the other departments, they will share from the centralized location. So they do not have their separate data. So it minimizes the duplication. When you minimize the duplication, so you have a controlled data redundancy. And you know, since we have also studied that data redundancy was because every file has their separate data. Here each and you know, every data or every file has separate program. Here we have a single program with the entire data. Number two, we have data consistency. What was the problem in file management system? The data was inconsistent, and I told you that the data redundancy leads to inconsistent data. But here, since we have controlled the duplication, we have controlled the data redundancy, so because of that, the inconsistent data, the data becomes consistent. Why it is consistent? Because the entire data is stored at one location. If you are updating data at one location, the entire data is updated. If you are doing some changes, you are bringing some changes, the centralized location changes, all department gets the change data. If you update the data, all the departments, they get the updated data. So that is why, since data is stored at one location, so the entire data is consistent. Consistency is, you know, at a high level in the database management system. Then we have data sharing. In the definition, in the very start, we define that database is a shared collection. While in file management system, individual files were used to store separate data in separate location, and each file has different program, individual program to store data, to update data, to delete data, separate program. But here we have only one software called DBMS, and this DBMS gives you the facility to share the same location data among all departments. So data sharing is a huge advantage over the file management system. Okay, so the next advantage, we have the enforcement of standard over the data. What is the enforcement of standard? Means you can put your standards over the format and structure of the data. I would say the name, the format and the structure of data. So you can enforce your standard over these things. It means that if we bring any change in the format of the table or in the format of the data, or if we do some changes, if we make some changes inside the structure of the data, the same DBS is capable again to store, to manipulate and delete the data. You do not need to change or to write another application program or another program. Means that the same DBMS is very much capable to change itself with the change format, change data changes. So data enforcement is very easy and for example, I would say the important feature of that enforcement inside the database management system. Next one. Database security. In conventional file system, there was not any centralized security. But here, since the data is stored at centralized location, so you can put a lot of securities and many levels of securities over the DBMS. For example, you give a password security. You can put fingerprint security. You can enforce another type of security. So lots of security you can put on the your data, and you can create different. Even I would say that each department can see only that data that is intended to them, that is shown to them. That there is a person which controls the entire database, that is called database administrator. And for example, he wants to show only examination files to the examination department. So the examination department cannot see the accounts files, they cannot see the progress file, they cannot see the library file, they can only see that portion which is intended to them. So you can put a lot of securities, a lot of logs, like password securities are there. You can put 2 or 3 level password security plus fingerprint security. So it is very much secure throughout the world. The sixth one is reduced in a file management system. We have for one data, for different operations, we have different programs. For example, you want to store data, you have different program. You want to delete data, you have different program. You want to do some changes, you have different programs. So, but here you have a single program called DBMS, Database Management System. And since the data is stored at one centralized location, so therefore the program maintenance is very easy. If there are some changes or some errors coming, so the program maintenance and a program keeping records in a tray, so that is very easy for the database administrator and for the programmer. The most important advantage, and that is called forgot the name, backup and security. The big advantage is of database management system, that it gives the facility to the database administrator or to the person who controls the database, that they take regular backups. The database is capable to take automatic backup, or you can take regular backups by your own as well. So it can take daily backup, weekly backup, monthly backup, and it takes many copies. It creates many copies, and the technique is this, that it creates normally 3 copies. one copy will be sent to the, for example, the database is in Peshawar. So one copy of the backup will be sent to the main office of Peshawar, another will be sent to Islamabad, another will be kept in this office. So three different copies of the same backup is created. So when there is a damage, when there is some problem occurs, for example, the hard disk got damaged, for example, there is some fire, there is some inner damage comes to the database. So now you can, it is not a security recovery. So you can recover your data from that backup. The data is being recovered and the entire data you get again. So it is a huge advantage of DBMS. Then support for multiple views. Dear students, there are many departments in an organization. Let's see, take the example of our college. For example, if there is an examination department, the examination department will see only a view of the examination. If there is an account department, the account department will only see a view of the account department files. They cannot see other department files. So you have created different views, different windows from where you can see, you can access and you can manipulate only that data which is intended to your department, which is related to your department. So that is what we call that support for multiple views for different departments. Each department will see only that data which is for their own department. They cannot see, they cannot check other files, other data of other departments. So these were the main advantages of DBMS over file management system. So today what we have discussed, in the start we have defined and discussed the database. Then we explained the DBMS, database management system. It is a set of software, it is a set of programs which is used to create database, maintain database and manipulate database. And then we have written some most widely used and most important and famous DBMS softwares. Then we came to the advantages of DBMS over file management system. We discussed today. It was control, data redundancy, data consistency, data sharing, enforcement of standards, and security. Of course, you know the huge advantage, reduced program maintenance. Maintenance becomes very easy in database management system, and the huge advantage that you can take backup of your database and then you can restore database whenever it is required. And then support for multiple views. You can see only that data. So multiple views, again enforcement of security, and you have a complete command over your database. So till now that is sufficient for today. Inshallah, from the next class we will start database models. Thank you students. God bless you.